Okay, so I'm joined by Matt Ackley, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Ritchie Bros. Matt, thank you very much for your time.
Great to be here.
Perfect. So we're just having a quick chat with Matt. Obviously, kind of big news kind of recently with Ritchie Brothers agreeing a deal to acquire Euro Auctions for around US 1 billion. I just wondered if you could tell us a bit more about this, kind of maybe how long was the deal in the mix for, and what kind of impact it might have on the business.
Yeah, no, pleasure to answer the questions here. We're incredibly excited about this opportunity. One of the very interesting things here is how similar the two businesses are, right? And also the legacy of the two businesses. You've got basically sets of brothers that started each business. And if you talk to Derek and Johnny, right, they've actually patterned Euro Auctions after Ritchie Brothers. Derek had the opportunity to meet Dave Ritchie very early on, and he's talked a lot about the influence that Dave had on him when he created the business. And so, it's culturally and in the way we approach customers, the customer-centric attitude, just all very much set itself up for a great match between the two organizations. And the process, I believe when Derek and Johnny and the brothers decided to sell, we were obviously very interested, and we were obviously a logical partner for them because of that rich legacy between the two companies.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I kind of wonder if one of the goals of the acquisition is to maybe enable Ritchie Brothers to kind of grow in some specific markets. Kind of, I don't know whether kind of maybe Europe, Middle East, and Africa would be a focus for maybe a bit more growth.
Yeah, no, spot on, right? We've always seen ourselves as a global company. We think it's incredibly important to be a global company. And there's been a really strong focus on growing internationally. And when you look at this particular opportunity, first and foremost, we look at, what does it mean for the customer? And we know in the equipment market today that, if you're a seller, having access to a global buyer base is incredibly important. And if you're a buyer, having access to, a global selection of equipment is very important. And so when we look at Euro Auctions and the growth and the progress they've made, specifically in the EMEA region, it very much fits into our strategy from that standpoint, right? We see this as, we've invested here, over the years, but we see this as, after the opportunity for our customers as a way for us to accelerate growth specifically in this region.
Okay, thank you. And kind of going forwards, am I right? Is the plan that Euro Auctions will kind of retain its own brand identity? Do you think that will be the case kind of long term?
Yeah, no, I mean, as we, right now we're in this phase, right? So, we've just announced the acquisition, and, we're in a situation right now where, it's going to require regulatory approval and so forth. And then, we're kind of setting up this integration process. But one of the things we are really interested in about Euro is actually the brand, right? They've done a really excellent job of creating what we call a pan-European brand, obviously with the name. And we're very interested in that, right? And we're also very interested in, other aspects of their business, right? So they have a strong, what we call sourcing business, and they have unique equipment expertise. And so, as we go forward, as we look at the integration, we're going to be looking to maintain, a lot of those elements, right? Because, they really have exhibited strong growth over the past, 5-10 years, and that's not something we want to lose.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess just kind of talking a little bit more broadly, I'd just kind of be curious to know kind of how kind of business is at the moment for kind of Ritchie Brothers, and kind of looking ahead to the future. Obviously, things can change that we don't know, but
yeah, for those who don't know, I come from the online world. I came in through the Iron Planet acquisition. And the advent of COVID was really interesting for Ritchie Brothers, right? Ritchie Brothers' core offering is this live unreserved auction, which started some 65 years ago, right? And we've really perfected. And I think when COVID hit, a lot of people questioned, like, hey, what does this mean for Ritchie Brothers? But actually, the kind of the sneaky little secret that we had is that even before COVID, 70% of our transactions were occurring online, right? And then you throw in the Iron Planet business, the Gov Planet business, which were all online to begin with. And so you really had a situation where we only kind of had like 30% to go. And so it wasn't that much of a difficult transition for us. Here in Europe, we run actually all our auctions, online only, using a timed auction system. And so, while we've, essentially, looked at this transition, it wasn't, I'm a golfer, so it wasn't really a long putt for us to make this transition. Now, when we look at the market today, obviously we're still in the midst of COVID. One of the interesting things that is going on is, there's strong demand for equipment right now, right? So we're seeing record high pricing, we're seeing record high demand. Some of that is the transition to online. Some of that is actually just the overall demand for equipment and the tightness of supply, right? So the OEMs, I won't say they're struggling, but I think, as they're trying to catch up coming out of COVID. And so you take this high demand market, you take this tight supply market, and I think everybody in the used equipment space is sort of going through this process right now, is like, hey, where's the supply? When is this going to be unleashed? What's that going to mean? When are we going to see the peak of pricing? But right now, looking at some of the analyst calls that we track, coming out of Q2, we had our call coming out of Q2. We're kind of looking towards the end of this year, early next year, to see some of this stuff start to unlock. So it's really interesting times for us. You take this concept of, hey, we're now online only. You combine that with the high demand, tight supply environment, and we're really seeing this strong pricing and kind of robust activity at all of our sales.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And kind of, I know that you said kind of even before COVID, you guys had a strong online proposition anyway. But do you think, from kind of talking to people in your business and talking to people in the industry, that even kind of, hopefully COVID, does go away at kind of some point in the future, do you think that certain behaviors and certain attitudes will be changed long term?
Yeah, no, and so yes, I do think there will be a change long term. I think if you look at us, we'll be changing some of the ways we conduct our sales, but we really, one of the interesting things, and I'll just, analysts and people who follow us always ask us, like, are you going to go back to the live sales, or are you going to get rid of all your auction yards? And what we're actually seeing is the live sale itself was less about the bidding on the equipment and actually more about people networking, right? Getting a chance to meet, coming together. And so even during COVID, our yards have been open the whole time. People dropping off equipment, buyers coming by and inspecting equipment. So as we go forward, so two things are kind of happening in our strategy. One is kind of thinking about this experience of the sale day itself, right? What do we do to create, still create those opportunities for people to network? For our salespeople to meet with customers, for customers to meet each other. That's an important part of what we've offered. At the same time, we're actually building out our network of sites. So we're actually building more locations, because what we've seen is that even though the transaction itself is online, the bidding is online, there's still a need for buyers to come and see equipment, sellers to drop off equipment, because they, look, when you sell, I don't know, what's the version of Gumtree or Craigslist, Craigslist, people don't necessarily want buyers coming to their yard where they have equipment to see the equipment. So having all of these local, what we're calling, we're building out kind of sort of smaller yards that provide people the opportunity to drop off and see equipment, and also the ability to network. So we're kind of, the way to think about it is kind of a hybrid model is what we're experimenting with going forward.
Great, thank you, man. That's really interesting. I think that's probably, obviously in different ways, but I think that hybrid model is going to be key, isn't it? I think to kind of, everyone in the industry, kind of different OEMs, even from kind of, workers, working from home and kind of working from the office. I think hybrid and being able to
hybrid's going to be probably the term, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Matt, and for giving us that information. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. No, thanks for having me.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.